This is in Munich. The enemy of Europe is Europe itself, he says. It's lost its fundamental values. Let's take a look.
But while the Trump administration is very concerned with European security and believes that we can come to a reasonable settlement between Russia and Ukraine, and we also believe that it's important in the coming years for Europe to step up in a big way to provide for its own defense, the threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America.
Lost its fundamental values. I mean, what's the point of being a part of NATO if Europe just wants to turn itself into like some Chinese-style totalitarian state? Then what's the point, right? Those aren't my values. Let's take a look.
And expressing opinions isn't election interference. Even when people express views outside your own country, and even when those people are very influential. And trust me, I say this with all humor, if American democracy can survive 10 years of Greta Thunberg scolding, you guys can survive a few months of Elon Musk. But what German democracy...
Silence. We don't like it. Silence. They did not like that at all. They don't like hearing the truth is the problem.
What no democracy, American, German, or European, will survive is telling millions of voters that their thoughts and concerns, their aspirations, their pleas for relief are invalid or unworthy of even being considered.
They probably asked to see his papers after this, I'm betting. Yikes. Let's look at this guy here. So German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius starts whining about J.D. Vance's speech, saying it was not acceptable.
He spoke of the annulment of democracy, and if I understood him correctly, he compares the condition of Europe with the condition that prevails in some authoritarian regimes. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not acceptable.
Okay. Let's see. Some notable abuses of free speech in the European Union over the last 5 years include Germany's expansion of defamation laws. Well, that's where he's from, Germany. Germany has expanded its defamation statutes to prohibit criticism of who? Can you guess who they prohibit criticism of? Oh, politicians. Politicians, if it is perceived to interfere with their official duties, because that's democracy, that's free speech, not being able to criticize the government. Germany, it's all starting to feel extremely familiar, isn't it? This has led to over 1,300 criminal complaints for comments or posts critical of those in power, including satire. That's right, because fascists don't like to be laughed at, and social media posts calling officials idiots. But what if they are idiots? Is that guy an idiot? Fact check, true. The vague nature of what constitutes interference has been criticized for potentially stifling free speech. Potentially? Okay, what's the German word for potentially? What's the German word for absolutely? Digital Services Act. The EU's Digital Services Act aims to regulate online platforms, but has been criticized for potentially enabling censorship. I bet that there's some potential enabling of censorship going on. There are concerns that it grants broad powers to the European Commission to police content, particularly during crises, and might encourage platforms to err on the side of over-moderation to avoid fines. This could lead to the suppression of free speech under the guise of combating misinformation or hate speech. Misinformation, it turns out, often just seems to be information, and hate speech turns out to be things that fascist Germans like that guy just don't like. Content moderation and internet shutdown threats. There have been instances where EU officials have threatened to shut down social media platforms or enforce strict content removal, particularly during times of civil unrest or when content is deemed hateful. This has raised alarms about the potential for arbitrary blocking of platforms and the impact of free speech. Hey, Rumble is blocked in France. And they keep threatening to shut down X because they don't like Elon. They don't like free speech. They don't like hearing things. Well, we know that German politicians actually made it illegal to criticize them or criticize them too harshly or call them idiots. Let's see. Political censorship and legal actions against political parties. In Germany, there's been a push against the Alternative for Germany party, with efforts to ban it due to its political stance, including over 700 hate crime complaints, which is just what? What is that? Hate crime is so broadly defined now that it really just means anything that's not far left. Complaints against individuals for insulting Green Party politicians. So it's a hate crime to insult Green Party politicians. This reflects a broader trend where political speech is increasingly scrutinized and potentially curtailed. I mean, you're getting the message here, right? Surveillance and harassment of journalists, regulations of online political speech. This is a desperate man clinging to power. That's what this is. This is a desperate despot clinging to power. These people, I'm convinced, they look at China with envy. They see that as the perfect state, right? It's got capitalism now. Capitalism with Chinese characteristics. Trudeau's on camera saying they admired the Chinese basic dictatorship. They're just telling us this. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. Please like, share, and subscribe. Subscribing really helps me out. I thank you for that. I will see you next time.